Hello and welcome to Adrian Russell. In this article I'm going to be talking about what it takes to become an indie author, but in fact actually more importantly about the learning curve that I've gone through becoming an author for the very first time. If I take you back a couple of years, I started writing my book probably about 6 years ago, and I wrote it probably around about 4,000 words, but then like all things it gets put to one side and it got put on the shelf. For those of you that listen to some of my other podcasts, you'll know that I went through cancer last year, which was 2015. But instead of getting down and upset about it, what I actually did do was I took it as an opportunity actually, and I used writing as my focus. So when I was there having my chemo put into me, I would be sitting there tapping away on my keyboard. So once I had my book written, I then had to work out what to do from there. So this article is about that learning curve, and as with all things when you start off something new, that learning curve begins very steep. But as you progress, that learning curve levels off. And I just wanted to share some of my insights into this new world. The article is probably directed at newbie authors or indie authors, those of you that think, well actually I've got a book inside me. Only today actually I was talking to the lady that was arranging for me. I'm going on the BBC in a couple of days' time, and we were talking about novel writing, and she said, oh, I want to write a novel, and she was tapping into my brain of what it takes to write a book. And so it's for those of you that want to get that book written, or for those of you who even started writing a book. There's a few tips in here that I've certainly learned along the way. So what's involved with becoming an indie author? Well, to begin with, just to understand what a novel actually is, well, from my understanding that a novel really needs to be around about 60,000 words, but the average novel I've found is between 75 to 120,000 words. And I remember having a conversation with someone quite a few years ago on Twitter actually, when I'd started writing it and started considering doing this, that this lady said to me, it really needs to be under around about 85,000 words, particularly for your first novel. Well, my first draft, well, I say first draft, it took a while to get there, might have been several drafts along the way, came out I think at about 108,000 words, so I thought, well, that's way too long. At that point I then had an editor involved, and he managed to get it down to I think about 98,000. Then I played around with it a bit more and got it down to I think about 96,000 words, which is my novel Nothing Left But Fear. So now you've sat down, you've decided, okay, I need to write at least 60,000 words, which at the outset you might think, wow, that's a lot of words. But believe you me, once you start writing, they soon start clocking up. Particularly if you set aside some time on most days and set yourself a target, you'll be surprised at how quickly those thousands of words just keep building up and building up. So just coming back to what I discovered, one of the first things I think was the advice I'd give you on good software. I have also written another article, and the article is about Scrivener. Now I began, probably like most other authors, I used Word. And the problem with Word, although it's actually a good tool for writing letters and documents and so on, once you get over a certain number of words, it becomes very cumbersome. And I also found that it was a bit temperamental and crashed a few times. So I then went to good old Google and I had a look around, and I bumped into Scrivener. And the good thing about Scrivener, I won't go into too much detail here, but the good thing about Scrivener is that you can set out your chapters very neatly, and it's a very good way of keeping track of your work. So I'd certainly recommend that you go and have a look at that, and particularly go and have a look at my article about Scrivener. So now that you've got your written article, and I would certainly advise getting an editor to edit your work, but let's assume you've done that, what about getting it published as an indie author? Well, the usual starting place is a Kindle version on Amazon, and that's what I did back in June 15, which is actually a very easy process, and particularly if you use Scrivener software, because it will help you to output it into the right format. Then after that I decided I wanted to do a paperback version. Now my first thoughts where I'm going to have to invest heavily in finding a printer to print them and then send them out and so on. But that actually isn't the case. A subsidiary or a sideline to Amazon is a company called CreateSpace, which is actually based in America. And if you go onto CreateSpace, you can upload your files to there, which will be your content and also your cover, and you don't have to pay any money up front. And the same thing happens with your royalties as with a Kindle. You get paid an amount once you sell each book, so there's no upfront costs. So I'd certainly recommend having a look at Amazon for your Kindle version and having a look at CreateSpace for your paperback. And the beauty of it is once you put it onto CreateSpace, it links automatically to your Amazon account once you've set up all your details, and it works absolutely brilliantly, and it doesn't cost you anything. Now, this is where the work really begins. So you've got your creative part, you've done all your creative writing, you might have even designed your cover of your book or have it outsourced, but now you've got to market the book. So what about the marketing? Well, there's a lot of work involved in that, and I've set up my own web page. I've got my own domain name, which is adrianrussell.com. You don't necessarily have to go to that expense, and it may be that your name is actually available to buy and not too expensive, but mine had already been taken, so I had to buy that. You'll then set up a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and so on and so on. And then of course you can then have paid for advertising, and you can then get people to review your book and so on and so forth. But there's another page or a website that I found which is a reader's paradise, and that's Goodreads. Now Goodreads is a very good resource for authors and readers alike, because authors can put their work up on there, and what you can do is you can find a book that you like or an author you like, and you can go onto their book and say, I'd like to read this book. And it's a very good way for readers to set aside books that they want to read without first buying them from Amazon. And then once you decide you want to buy it, you can then just go to Amazon and buy it. And it's a very good way of stacking the books you want to read. And of course, from the point of view as an indie author, this is great, because you can put your book up on there, and then hopefully once people find you, they can click on your book and say, I want to read that. But one thing I did do with Goodreads is that they do a giveaway, and you can give away 1 book or 10 books or whatever you want to do. Now, there's no requirement for the people that you give away a book to review, but on the whole, people do. So you give away, or you set up a competition, and you give away your books to those people that win. And I think when I put mine up there, around about 1,200 people requested my book to win it, and then I gave away 10 of those, which is about the recommended number. And so far I've already had some good reviews from doing that. So that's something I'd recommend doing. But it does mean that you have to send paperback versions to all those people. And all I did was the people in America that requested it, I just went on to CreateSpace and ordered it and sent it to their address in the States. And the people in the UK, I just bought it off their Amazon and then sent it to them, because those are the 2 territories I held the competition in. And the other good thing about it is that obviously there was 1,200 people that applied and said that they want to read my book. And I'm pretty sure that some of those people that requested it but didn't win would go on to read it anyway. So you get, it's a win-win situation really. Something that I've learned along the way too, and be careful with this, but it may be a mistake you don't make, particularly if you listen to me. Now, it was something I overlooked in my Scrivener software, that I'd set the font size to size 11 within the software. But what I hadn't realised is when you export it, there's another setting that you set the export, and it had exported it as size 14. So when I sent it all off to CreateSpace, they produced my book all lovely, bound and everything like that. And I ordered the very first one off the press. It arrived in the UK, very excited to open it up. And although it looked really nice and really just so exciting, the text in there was probably a little bit on the large side. So I thought, that's not a problem. I would have another one produced. And in fact, I was in the process of having it printed in the UK to do some book signing, but I was going to have it reduced down to size 11, font size 11. And what I then quickly discovered, fortunately before I'd gone to the expense of having them printed, is that the ISBN number, which is a specific number on the back of any book, also corresponds with the number of pages in the book. The ISBN is made up of the genre, the number of pages, etc., etc. So I would need a new ISBN, which I'm in the process of sorting out. Another tip for you, certainly in the UK, and it may well be in the States or Australia or other countries that you might be listening to this article in, is certainly in the UK, Waterstones, they have what's called local novelists, and you can go to your local Waterstones and speak to the manager there and say, I would like to do a book signing, and they welcome this. And as it happens, in my local area I've got several Waterstones, and you can go into each one, you can set up a banner and you can sit there and you can sign the books. And what happens is Waterstones will sell the book at the price that's on the back of your novel, and then you will get a cut of that almost like on a royalty type basis. So that's an extra tip to get yourself out there, to get yourself known, and so on. A final good luck. I wish you all the best in your new adventure. And I twittered something only the other day, is that creating your novel is creativity at its best, but marketing is when the real work begins. But writing a book and getting it out there is, in my opinion, entrepreneurship at its best. And at the end of the day, if you want to ask me any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. And if you just pop your question in the comments below, and I'll look out for those with great interest. And even if you just want to comment on the article that I've written here or spoken about, then that would be great. But if you have a question or a burning question about that novel, then I'll be more than happy to reply. Well, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye for now.